Engineer Tayman watched his instruments with growing amazement as the alien fleets continued to break apart. The historical transmission had been broadcasting for 6 hours now, and its effects were spreading faster than anyone had predicted. The entire alien species had already withdrawn their ships from the attack formation, while others were demanding emergency meetings with the Galactic Council. The transmission had reached the most terrifying section of human history. The wars of the HFY 20th century alien commanders throughout the galaxy watched in shock as humans demonstrated warfare on a scale that seemed impossible. Images showed millions of human soldiers fighting across entire continents, using weapons that could destroy cities and poison the land for generations. Admiral Kex of the Vorthan Empire sent an urgent message to all Galactic Council members. Council leaders, we may have made a serious error in our assessment of human capabilities. These beings do not fight, like any species we have previously encountered. They appear to become more dangerous as their situation becomes more desperate. The transmission showed the siege of Leningrad, where human civilians survived 900 days of starvation then surrendered to enemy forces. Images showed people eating tree bark leather and anything else they could find to stay alive, yet refusing to give up their city. Alien species who surrendered after losing a single battle could not understand how humans endured such suffering and kept fighting. Captain Hyunwoo stood before his small crew, watching the alien formations dissolve around Earth. They are beginning to understand, he told his officers. Every species the Galactic Council conquered before gave up when victory became impossible. But humans have never had the luxury of fighting only winnable battles. Communications officer Sojin reported that alien databases across the galaxy were being accessed at unprecedented rates as different species tried to understand human psychology. Sir, the Ethereal Syndicate has requested access to our complete military history. The Crystalline Hierarchy wants to study human survival techniques, and the Void Collective is asking for information about human space colonization methods. The historical files showed the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, where humans with almost no weapons fought against military forces equipped with tanks and aircraft, rather than accept certain death humans built weapons from scrap metal and fought street by street, knowing they could not win but refusing to die quietly. Medical Officer Jinnah was treating crew members for exhaustion, but their spirits had never been higher. Sir, she reported to Captain Hyunwoo, the aliens are not just studying our military history. They are trying to understand our psychology. Several species have contacted their own historical experts asking why other intelligent races never developed human survival traits. Engineer Tae-min made a discovery that explained the alien confusion. Captain, I have been analyzing their communications and I found something interesting. Every species the Galactic Council conquered had evolved on planets with stable conditions and abundant resources. When they faced superior force, their survival instinct told them to surrender and find ways to coexist. But humans evolved on a planet where everything tried to kill them. Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, deadly diseases, massive predators, unstable climate, and limited resources. Surrender was never an option because there was no mercy in nature. Humans learned that survival meant fighting, even when fighting seemed hopeless. The transmission moved to human space exploration, showing how humans had gone from primitive aircraft to landing on their moon in just 66 years. Images showed human astronauts risking their lives in tiny metal capsules launched by controlled explosions, willing to die for the chance to explore unknown worlds. Alien scientists watched in fascination as humans demonstrated problem-solving abilities that seemed impossible. When their spacecraft broke down millions of miles from Earth, humans used whatever materials they had to build solutions. When their colonies faced disasters that should have killed everyone, humans found ways to adapt and survive. Navigator Yunji was coordinating with hidden human settlements throughout the galaxy as they began emerging from concealment. Sir, we are receiving signals from places we thought had been destroyed. The mining colony on Kepler 442b has been operating underground for 3 years. The research station near the Vale Nebula has been building ships in secret. The agricultural settlement on Glisa 6N67C has been training guerrilla fighters. The aliens were discovering that humans had done something no conquered species had ever attempted before. They had continued to resist even after their official defeat. While the Galactic Council thought they had eliminated human civilization. Humans had simply adapted by becoming harder to find. Dr. Minho's psychological analysis proved accurate. The alien species had evolved to survive through cooperation and submission to stronger forces. But humans had evolved to survive through stubborn resistance to any force that threatened them. The worse their situation became, the more creative and dangerous humans got. Commander Nex appeared on communication screens again, but this time his 4 eyes showed uncertainty. Rather than confidence, humans, we have reviewed your historical data and we are confused. Your species seems to fight harder when your chances of victory become smaller. This behavior makes no logical sense. Captain Hyun-woo smiled as he replied, Commander, that is exactly the point. Logic says we should surrender when we cannot win. But human logic is different. We learned millions of years ago that today impossible might become tomorrow possible. The key is surviving long enough to find out. The historical transmission showed human technological advancement during wartime. When faced with enemies who had better weapons, humans did not surrender. They built better weapons. When enemies had superior numbers, humans developed better tactics. When enemies controlled the land, humans learned to fight in the air and under the sea alien. Military analysts studied these files with growing alarm. They realized that humans did not just adapt to changing conditions. Humans actively created new conditions that favored their survival. If current technology was not good enough, humans invented better technology. If current tactics did not work, humans developed new tactics. Engineer Tai Min discovered something in the alien communications that changed everything. Captain, the alien species are starting to fear each other. They are asking questions like, if humans fight this hard as the underdogs, what happens when humans become the dominant species? Several species are privately discussing whether they should switch sides. The broadcast showed glimpses of human potential that terrified alien leaders. The space program that took humans from Earth to multiple planets in less than 2 centuries. The terraforming technology that could make dead worlds habitable. The industrial capacity that could build fleets of starships in underground factories while under attack. Lieutenant Sojin received messages that shocked everyone. Captain, we are getting communications from conquered species throughout the galaxy. The Zalari survivors who have been hiding for 50 years want to know how humans resist occupation. The Morthak rebels are asking for copies of human guerrilla warfare manuals. The Trilaxian underground wants to coordinate resistance activities. The revelation was spreading beyond just the attacking alien fleets. Enslaved species across the galaxy were learning that intelligent beings could fight impossible odds and win. They were discovering that conquest did not have to be permanent, that resistance was possible. Even after defeat, Captain Hyun-woo realized that their desperate gamble had accomplished something far greater than saving Earth. The historical transmission had awakened something in the galaxy that had been sleeping for centuries, the knowledge that freedom was worth fighting for no matter how bad the odds looked. The aliens had thought they were destroying the last remnants of a defeated species. Instead, they had accidentally triggered the beginning of a galactic revolution that would change everything. Commander Nex found himself in an emergency council session as panic spread through the alien fleets. The human transmission had been viewed by billions of beings across the galaxy, and the reaction was not what anyone had expected. They're not like the Zalari or the Morthak, reported Intelligence Officer Quinn. Those species surrendered when we showed superior force. Humans seem to fight harder when the odds get worse. The Galactic Council was receiving reports from across their territory. Conquered species who had been slaves for generations were suddenly asking questions about human history. Some were even beginning to resist their overseers for the first time in centuries. Back on Earth, Navigator Yunji was coordinating with hidden human settlements throughout the galaxy. The captain's broadcast hadn't just been a history lesson. It had been a signal to every human colony. Every hidden ship, every survivor who had been waiting for the right moment to act. "Sir, we're getting responses," she reported excitedly. From the mining colonies on Kepler 442b, from the research station near the Vale Nebula, from settlements we thought had been destroyed. They're all still fighting. The aliens were discovering that humans had done something unprecedented in galactic history. They had continued to resist even after their defeat. while the Galactic Council thought they had hunted down all human colonies. The humans had simply gone deeper underground, continuing to build and prepare. Dr. Minho's psychological analysis had been accurate. The alien species had evolved in environments where cooperation and submission to stronger forces meant survival. Humans had evolved on a world where everything tried to kill them, where only the most stubborn and adaptable survived. Engineer Taman made a discovery that changed everything. "Captain, I've been analyzing their communications. The alien species are starting to fear each other. If humans fight this hard as the underdogs, what happens when humans become the dominant species?" The broadcast had shown them glimpses of human potential, the space program that put humans on their moon in less than a century after learning to fly. The technology that could terraform dead worlds, the determination that had taken them from caves to starships in just a few thousand years. Some alien species were beginning to realize they hadn't cornered a dying species. They had awakened something that had been quietly growing stronger throughout the galaxy. Dr. Minho sat in his laboratory watching the screens that showed alien fleet movements across the galaxy. The transmission that Captain Hunwoo had started was spreading faster than anyone had expected. Every alien species in known space was now receiving the complete history of human warfare and survival as Earth-leading expert on alien psychology. Dr. Minho understood exactly what the captain was doing. The alien species had made one critical mistake when planning their attack on humanity. They had never bothered to study what made humans different from every other species they had conquered. The historical transmission continued playing across alien communication networks, showing images that made alien military commanders pause. In confusion, cave paintings showed humans hunting massive prehistoric beasts with nothing but pointed sticks and teamwork. Ancient texts described human armies defeating enemies with superior numbers and better weapons, simply by refusing to give. Up Lieutenant Haya Jin monitored alien communications from her station in the underground command center. "Captain, the alien fleets are talking to each other and they sound worried. The Vorthon Empire is asking the Galactic Council for more information about human military history. The Trilaxian Confederacy wants to delay the attack until they can analyze our data." Dr. Minho had spent years studying how different alien species thought and reacted to threats. Most alien civilizations had evolved on worlds where cooperation and submission to stronger forces meant survival. Their planets had stable climates, plenty of resources, and few natural disasters. When faced with superior force, their instinct was to surrender and find ways to coexist. But humans had evolved on a world that constantly tried to kill them. Ice ages that lasted thousands of years, volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun for decades, diseases that wiped out entire civilizations, predators that hunted humans across continents. Yet somehow humans had not just survived, but thrived in conditions that would have ended most alien species. The transmission showed medieval human warfare, where knights fought battles in armor that weighed more than most alien species, could lift images of human castles built on mountain peaks that required years of dangerous construction, sieges where human defenders held out for months eating anything they could find, rather than surrender. Commander Nex appeared on communication screens throughout the human defense network. His 4 eyes no longer glowed with complete confidence. "Human Captain, your historical data shows your species is violent and stubborn, but this does not change current military reality. We still have superior numbers and technology." Captain Hyunwoo's response was simple. "Keep watching, Commander." The lesson is not over yet. The historical files moved into more recent human history, showing the world wars where humans fought with weapons that could destroy entire cities. The aliens watched in shock as humans demonstrated they could create incredibly destructive technology, yet somehow found ways to avoid completely destroying themselves. Images showed human soldiers fighting in conditions that would kill most alien species, trenches filled with poisonous gas, where humans continued fighting, even when they could barely breathe. Frozen battlefields where human armies marched through snow so deep it buried their vehicles. Desert campaigns, where humans fought while their water supplies ran out. Dr. Minho added his own research to the broadcast psychological profiles, showing how humans responded differently to threats than any other known species, while other intelligent races became more cautious and sought compromise when faced with danger. Humans showed the opposite pattern. They became more creative, more determined and more willing to take extreme risks. The alien fleets began showing signs of confusion. Several species started requesting emergency council meetings to discuss what they were learning about human psychology. The Draconian Empire, which had never retreated from any battle in their 1,000-year history, quietly moved some of their ships to safer positions. Lieutenant Hygen reported more changes in alien behavior. Sir, the Morthak Collective is accessing our historical databases directly. They want to study human military tactics from the past 5,000 years. The Ethereal Syndicate has stopped moving their ships closer to Earth and started forming defensive formations instead. The transmission reached the section about human space exploration, showing how humans had gone from learning to fly to landing on their moon in less than 70 years. Images showed human colonies being built on planets with deadly radiation, poisonous atmospheres, and extreme temperatures. Yet humans found ways to survive and thrive in environments that other species avoided completely. Dr. Minho knew this was the most important part of the lesson. The aliens were realizing that humans did not just survive hostile conditions, they actively sought them out. Human explorers chose to go to the most dangerous places in their galaxy, not because they had to, but because they wanted to test themselves against impossible challenges. Commander Nex contacted the human fleet again. This time his voice carried uncertainty rather than confidence. Humans, your species appears to have unusual responses to difficult situations, but you are still vastly outnumbered, and your technology is inferior to ours. Captain Hyunwoo smiled as he replied, Commander, you are correct about our numbers and technology, but you are missing the most important point. We are not trying to win this battle. We are trying to survive it. And humans are very, very good at surviving things that should kill them. The historical transmission entered its most shocking section, the Cold War, where two human nations had pointed enough nuclear weapons at each other to destroy all life on Earth multiple times over. Yet instead of destroying themselves, humans had found ways to compete without ending their civilization. Alien military analysts watched in amazement as humans demonstrated they could build ultimate weapons but choose not to use them. They could create technology capable of making their planet uninhabitable, yet find ways to step back from that edge. They could hate each other enough to prepare for total war, yet love their species enough to avoid it. Dr. Minho watched alien communication networks as panic began spreading through their fleets. The aliens were starting to understand that they had not cornered a normal species. Humans did not think like other intelligent races. When faced with impossible odds, humans did not seek surrender or compromise. They sought ways to make the impossible possible. Reports came in from across the galaxy showing that the historical transmission was reaching more than just military forces. Civilian populations on alien worlds were watching human history and asking questions their governments could not answer. If humans could survive and thrive under such terrible conditions, why did other species accept conquest so easily? Lieutenant Hygen received a message that changed everything. Captain, we are getting signals from human settlements across the galaxy. Places we thought had been destroyed are still broadcasting. They were hiding, waiting for a signal to act. Your transmission was not just a history lesson, it was a call to action. The aliens had thought they were attacking the last desperate remnants of humanity. Instead, they were learning that humans had been quietly spreading throughout the galaxy, building hidden colonies and preparing for exactly this moment. While other species surrendered when conquered, humans had simply become better at hiding. Dr. Minho realized that Captain Hyunwoo had done something unprecedented in galactic history. He had turned a military defeat into a psychological victory. By showing aliens what humans were truly capable of, he had planted seeds of doubt in every alien mind watching the transmission. The awakening had begun. Not just for the aliens who were learning what they had chosen to fight, but for humans throughout the galaxy who were remembering what they were capable of when their survival was at stake. Captain Hyunwoo looked out at the darkness of space where thousands of alien ships waited like hungry wolves. The year was 2387, and these ships belonged to 12 different alien species who had all joined together for one purpose: to destroy humanity completely. The bridge of the human battleship felt cold and empty with only a few crew members left. Sojin sat at her communication station, her young face pale with worry. She had been receiving the same message from the aliens for 3 days now. Total surrender or total death. Hyun-woo walked slowly across the bridge looking at each of his remaining crew members. Engineer Taemin was working on weapons that barely functioned anymore. His tools moved quickly over broken circuits, trying to give their ship just a little more fighting power. Navigator Yoonji stared at her star charts knowing there was nowhere left to run. The aliens had found every human colony and destroyed them. One by one. Medical Officer Jenna prepared her small medical bay for wounded that would soon arrive. She knew this battle would probably be their last, but she kept working anyway. Her steady hands organized medical supplies that might save a few more human lives. The main screen flickered to life, showing the face of Commander Nex, the alien leader. His 4 eyes glowed with confidence, and his voice carried the authority of someone who had never lost a war. His species had conquered 17 other intelligent races, and humans would be number 18. Commander Nex spoke slowly as if talking to children. Humans, your pathetic resistance ends today. You have fought bravely but uselessly for months. Now you will surrender your entire species to serve us, or we will turn your planet into space dust like we did to the Zalari homeworld. Hyun-woo remembered reading about the Zalari in the Galactic databases. They had been peaceful traders who built beautiful cities and created amazing art. When the Galactic Council decided they were taking up too much space, the Zalari surrendered immediately, hoping mercy would save them. It did not. Their planet was now an empty rock floating in space. But humans were different, and Hyun-woo had spent the last few weeks learning exactly how different they were. Hidden deep in Earth archives were historical records that previous generations had buried, records of what humans had done to each other throughout their long, violent history. Records that might save them now, while his crew worked desperately to prepare for battle. Hyun-woo had been reading these old files. He learned about ancient human warriors who fought impossible battles and won through pure stubbornness. He read about humans who survived in conditions that would kill most alien species. He discovered that humans had one trait that no other known species possessed. They got more dangerous when things got worse. Taemin looked up from his repair work. Captain, the main cannon is working at 60% power. The shields can maybe take 2 direct hits before they fail. We have ammunition for perhaps 10 minutes of continuous fighting. Yoonji turned from her navigation console. Sir, I have calculated every possible escape route. The aliens have ships positioned at every hyperspace exit point. Even if we somehow broke through their lines, they would catch us before we reached the next star system, Jenna reported from her medical station. Captain, I am ready to treat wounded, but with this few crew members, every injury will be critical. We simply do not have enough people left to operate the ship if anyone gets seriously hurt. Sojin received another transmission from Commander Nex. Humans, you have 30 minutes to respond with your surrender hour. Patience grows thin and our weapons grow hungry. Choose quickly. Hyun-woo made a decision that would change the galaxy forever. Instead of preparing to fight or preparing to surrender, he walked to the communication station and began uploading something to every communication channel in known space. What he uploaded was not a weapon or a defense system. It was something much more powerful. The upload contained thousands of files from human history, files that showed how humans had survived and thrived on a world that constantly tried to kill them, files that demonstrated human behavior in desperate situations, files that would teach the galaxy what they had actually chosen to fight. The first files showed cave paintings from 30,000 years ago, humans with primitive spears hunting animals 10 times their size and winning. The images showed humans living through ice ages that covered most of their planet in frozen death, yet somehow surviving and growing stronger. Next came records from ancient human civilizations, small groups of human warriors defeating massive armies through clever tactics and refusing to give up. The Battle of Thermopylae, where 300 Spartans held off an army of hundreds of thousands. The story of David, fighting Goliath with nothing but a stone and determination. Commander Nex contacted them again. What is this data you are transmitting? Why are you sending us images of primitive humans with sticks and stones? These prove nothing about your current military capabilities. Hyun-woo smiled for the first time in weeks. Keep watching, Commander. You wanted to know what you are fighting. Now you will learn. The historical files continued showing human medieval warfare where knights fought in armor. So heavy most aliens could not even lift it. Images of humans building castles on mountain peaks that should have been impossible to reach. Records of human armies marching through winter snow that would freeze alien blood solid. The transmission showed humans exploring their own planet, crossing oceans in wooden ships climbing mountains that touched the sky, surviving in deserts where water did not exist for hundreds of miles, always pushing further, always refusing to accept that something was impossible. Taman watched his instruments with amazement. Captain, some of the alien ships are moving away from their attack positions. They seem to be discussing something among themselves. So Jin monitored alien communications. Sir, several species are requesting permission to review the historical data we are sending. They want to study it more carefully before proceeding with the attack. The files reached more recent human history. The World Wars, where humans fought each other with weapons that could destroy entire cities yet somehow avoided destroying their entire planet. The images showed human soldiers fighting in trenches filled with poison gas, continuing to fight even when their friends died around them. The Cold War appeared on screens throughout the galaxy, showing two human nations pointing enough nuclear weapons at each other to make their planet uninhabitable, yet finding ways to avoid using them. The aliens watched in shock as humans demonstrated they could create ultimate weapons but choose not to use them. Commander Nex's voice carried less certainty than before. Humans. What is the purpose of this historical lesson? Your past wars prove you are violent and dangerous. But we already knew this. Why do you waste our time with ancient battles? Because, Hyunwoo replied, you need to understand what you have chosen to fight. You conquered 17 species who gave up when defeat looked certain, but humans have never had the luxury of good odds. We learned long ago that survival means fighting even when you cannot win. The last part of the transmission began showing humanity expansion into space. The aliens watched humans building colonies on planets that should have killed them, surviving disasters that would have ended other civilizations, always adapting, always growing stronger, always refusing to stay defeated. As the historical lesson continued, alien ships throughout the attack fleet began breaking formation. Some species started withdrawing their forces entirely. The galaxy was learning that they had not cornered a weak, desperate species. They had awakened something that had spent millions of years learning how to survive impossible situations. Hyunwoo looked at his small crew and smiled. We are not the last humans, we are just the ones they can see. The battle that everyone expected never happened. Instead, something far more powerful took place as the alien alliance began crumbling from within. Fear and doubt spread through their ranks like a disease, turning their certainty into confusion, and their unity into chaos. Captain Hyunwoo received messages that he had never imagined possible. Admiral Kex of the Vorthon Empire sent a formal communication requesting negotiations for peaceful coexistence. The proud Draconian Empire, which had never retreated from any battle in their 1,000-year history, quietly withdrew half their fleet to defensive positions. Lieutenant Sojin could barely process the flood of communications coming from alien species throughout the galaxy. Sir, the Trilaxian Confederacy wants to establish trade relations. The Ethereal Syndicate is offering to share their advanced medical technology. The Crystalline Hierarchy is requesting permission to study human survival techniques. But the most significant changes were happening on conquered worlds across the galaxy. The historical broadcast had reached enslaved species who had given up hope generations ago. They were learning that intelligent beings could resist impossible odds and win. And this knowledge was spreading like wildfire through slave populations. Dr. Minho analyzed reports from across the galaxy with amazement. Captain, the rebellion is spreading faster than any military force could contain. The conquered species are not just refusing to work. They are actively sabotaging the systems that keep them enslaved, and they are using tactics copied directly from human history on the industrial world of Kepler 438b, where the Zalari had been forced to work in weapons factories. For 50 years, the slaves had organized a coordinated work stoppage. They were demanding the same rights and freedoms that humans had fought for throughout their history. The Morthak artists who had been enslaved to create propaganda for the Galactic Council were now using their skills to spread messages of resistance. Their artwork showed scenes from human history depicting small groups defeating larger forces through determination and clever tactics. Engineer Taemin monitored alien military communications and discovered something incredible. Sir, the alien fleets are not just afraid of fighting us. They are afraid of what happens after they fight us. Even if they win against humanity, the conquered species throughout the galaxy will know that resistance is possible. The Galactic Council faced a crisis that threatened their entire system of government. For thousands of years, they had maintained control by convincing conquered species that submission was the only path to survival. Now humans had proven that resistance was always an option. Medical officer Gina established communication with human settlements that had been hiding throughout the galaxy. Captain, we have made contact with the research station near Proxima Centauri. They have been developing new medical techniques by studying how humans adapt to hostile environments. Their discoveries could revolutionize medicine for all species. The hidden human colonies had not just been surviving. They had been advancing. Human scientists working in secret had developed technologies that surpassed anything the Galactic Council possessed. Human engineers had created ships that could travel faster and farther than alien vessels. Human doctors had learned to treat injuries and diseases that alien medicine considered incurable. Navigator Yunji coordinated the emergence of these hidden settlements, revealing a network of human resistance that spanned half the galaxy. Sir, the agricultural colony on Wolf 359 has been feeding refugee populations from conquered species. The mining operation in the Centaurus arm has been secretly supplying raw materials to resistance movements. The alien species were discovering that their intelligence about human capabilities had been completely wrong. They thought they had been hunting down the last desperate survivors of a defeated race. Instead, they had been fighting the visible portion of a civilization that had been quietly growing stronger throughout the galaxy. Dr. Minho shared his analysis with Captain Hunwoo. Sir, the psychological impact of our resistance is greater than any weapon we could have built. The alien species evolved to survive through cooperation and submission. When they see beings who choose death over slavery, it challenges everything they believe about survival communications. Officer So Jin received a message that changed everything. Captain, we have been contacted by Admiral Kex herself. She wants to meet in person to discuss what she calls a fundamental restructuring of galactic civilization. Her exact words were that humanity has shown the galaxy a better way to exist. The meeting took place on a neutral space station between the Earth and the alien fleets. Admiral Kex arrived, with a small escort showing trust that would have been impossible just days earlier. Her forearms gestured nervously as she spoke to Captain Hyun-woo. Captain, she said, her voice carrying none of its previous authority. My species has ruled over others for 3,000 years. We believed we were bringing order and stability to the galaxy, but your historical files have shown us something we never considered. The species we conquered might have preferred freedom to safety. Captain Hunwoo listened carefully before responding. Admiral, our history shows that freedom and safety are not opposites. When people are free to make their own choices, they often choose to cooperate and help each other. But when they are forced to cooperate, they often choose to resist. The negotiations that followed lasted for days, but the outcome was unprecedented in galactic history. The Vorthan Empire agreed to grant independence to all their conquered territories in exchange for mutual defense agreements and fair trade relationships. Other alien species quickly followed the Vorthan example. The Draconian Empire announced that they were dissolving their slave populations and offering employment contracts to anyone who wanted to stay. The Ethereal Syndicate began dismantling their forced labor camps and establishing worker protection laws. Engineer Taemin monitored these developments with satisfaction. Captain, the revolution is succeeding beyond our wildest expectations. 17 different species have announced reforms to their treatment of conquered populations. 6 species have granted complete independence to their former slaves. The changes were not happening just at the government level. Ordinary citizens of alien species were questioning their society treatment of other beings for the first time in generations. They had watched human history and seen what intelligent beings were capable of when they were free to choose their own destiny. Medical Officer Jinna received Requests from alien medical facilities asking for help, treating former slaves who had been injured during their years of forced labor. Sir, they want to learn human medical techniques because our doctors have experience treating people who have survived extreme hardships. Navigator Yunji reported that former slave worlds were requesting human advisors to help them establish independent governments. Sir, they want to learn from human political history how to create systems that protect individual rights while maintaining social cooperation. The turning point had been reached not through military victory, but through something far more powerful, the demonstration that freedom was worth fighting for, and that resistance was always possible. The galaxy was learning that strength came not from conquering others but from inspiring them to be their best selves. Captain Hyunwoo looked out at the alien fleets that had come to destroy humanity and saw something unprecedented in galactic history. Former enemies were becoming allies, conquered species were becoming free peoples, and the age of galactic tyranny was coming to an end. The humans had won not by defeating their enemies but by showing them a better way to. 6 months later, Captain Hyunwoo stood in what had once been the Galactic Council chambers. The building was the same, but everything else had changed. The council now included representatives from dozens of previously conquered species, all of whom had learned from humanity's example. The war that was supposed to end humanity had instead ended the age of galactic tyranny. Species that had been slaves for millennia were now free. The alien empires that had seemed invincible had crumbled not through military defeat, but through the simple realization that their subjects could choose to resist. Dr. Minho had established the Galactic Institute for Resistance Studies, where beings from across the galaxy came to learn human history and psychology. The most popular courses covered human military tactics, diplomatic strategies, and something entirely new to most species, the concept that temporary defeat was not permanent failure. Lieutenant So-jin, now promoted to captain, commanded one of humanity's new exploration fleets. Her mission was to contact species that had never been conquered, sharing human knowledge while learning from their unique perspectives on survival and growth. Engineer Taemin had become the galaxy's most sought-after teacher of adaptive technology. Alien species were amazed to learn how humans had taken simple tools and evolved them into starship engines, how they had turned survival instincts into exploration drives. The former alien empires still existed, but they had been forced to adapt. The Vorthon Empire had become the Vorthon Federation. The Draconian Empire now called itself the Draconian Republic. Slavery was becoming extinct across the galaxy, as more species learned that cooperation was more powerful than domination. Medical officer Jinnah established the first interspecies hospital, where human medical techniques were combined with alien healing methods. She discovered that humans' unusual ability to recover from severe injuries was teaching other species new approaches to medicine and survival. Navigator Yunji led the mapping of new trade routes that connected former slave worlds with their former masters as equals. Commerce was replacing conquest as the primary method of interspecies interaction. Commander Nex, the alien who had once demanded humanity's surrender, now served as humanity's military liaison. He had become one of the most effective advocates for peaceful coexistence in the galaxy. Humans taught us something we never knew, he often said. The strongest species isn't the one that conquers others. It's the one that survives anything and helps others survive too. The galaxy had learned that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't their technology or their tactics. It was their refusal to accept that any situation was hopeless. They had shown billions of beings that the difference between victory and defeat often came down to one simple choice. Whether to keep fighting or to give up. Earth became a pilgrimage site for beings throughout the galaxy who wanted to understand how one species could change everything. They came to see the museums showing human struggles, the monuments to human persistence, and the simple truth that had revolutionized galactic civilization. The species that had thought humanity was finished discovered they were right. The old humanity was finished. In its place stood something new, a humanity that had united not just their own species, but inspired an entire galaxy to choose freedom over fear, cooperation over conquest, and hope over surrender. The galaxy thought humanity was finished. Instead, humanity had finished the age of galactic tyranny forever.